the first mention of the word unprecedented out of the way. That is the hot word of the first quarter and April and May. So there's time number one if you're keeping tally marks. A little too early for that to be a drinking game, so let's not do that. Couple updates from the board. We did have our board meeting last week, very similar to this in a virtual atmosphere. Super productive meeting. Mike and Emily, they've been working incredibly hard to try and assist the business community and our membership kind of navigate through this time. Obviously, I think as everyone knows, everything is changing, I would say daily, but some days it's hourly. And trying to stay abreast to that and get updates out that are tangible and accurate is of course a challenge, but Mike and Emily have done an outstanding job of it. If anyone on the call, especially in the membership, has questions, concerns, if they're running into kind of a headwind with something that you think we may be able to help with, that's why we're here. So please don't hesitate to reach out and let us try and kind of find a shortcut if it's something that we can help with. I think some people on the call knew, as part of the new land use code being rolled out, there was a proposed moratorium out there that was, I think, a little bit longer than much of the business community was expecting. The Alliance did take a stance on it, worked with the county on it. Thank you to Clyde and Julie and Gwen. They really kind of heard us and listened, and have kind of backed away from that a little bit. So that's great news in the midst of this pandemic. It looks like that time period is going to be shortened, and they're looking at some other options. So that's great news. The other big piece is an organization. We're here to support the business community and the economic vitality of the region. And so as we go in and look at membership dues, we felt like it was appropriate, kind of in looking at our burn rate of cash on the balance sheet, to go ahead and defer some of those membership payments. So if you're getting invoices or anything like that, obviously if you have the ability to pay them, like any business, I mean, those are accounts receivable for us. But right now we're planning on deferring many of those payments until there's a little more certainty around when businesses can reopen and return to whatever normal looks like at that point. Again, if you do have the ability to pay, we'd appreciate it. It obviously helps with the cash flow and helps us provide more support back to the community. But don't let the membership dues be another added stress onto your business at this point. Work with Mike, Emily, Dan Corman, myself. You can reach out to any of us and have that conversation if you'd like to. Your membership is obviously super important to us, but we understand exactly kind of where we're at right now. I'm a banker by day, so the PPP loan process, I think like many of the financial institutions, really just kind of imploded our entire April. That was our world, and there was room for very little outside of that. There was a hope that 501c6s would have the ability to apply for the second tranche of funding. That did not get rolled out. The Alliance had kind of planned on at least monitoring that, and so that was not a source of funding for us. Again, just like many of the businesses in the community, we're looking at our financials, looking at the balance sheet, trying to make sure that we can weather this for as long as we need to. And with that, that's much of the board updates. Again, if there's any questions from the membership, feel free to reach out to myself, Mike, Emily, any of the board members. We'd be happy to answer any of the questions. At this point, I'll hand it over to Mike. He has been busy, and we'll get executive director updates. Mike?
Thank you, Jameson. Really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being with us this morning. From an economic development perspective, we're starting to transition from response to COVID into what we're calling a recovery phase. What that really means is that we've moved on from focus of stimulus and relief that Jameson just talked about into the early phases of reopening. And we've asked Leanne Gillon from San Juan Basin Health to join us this morning to talk about that. Since late March and into the first part of April, the Alliance has really focused on getting every possible organization, whether it's a sole proprietor, a gig worker, company, to qualify for some type of stimulus or relief. And we've hosted a series of webinars in conjunction with our sister organizations of the task force. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later on today as well. We've put out a playbook. If you're still needing to apply, please use that as a guide. And as I've noted, we've participated heavily on the task force. When I talk to some of our lending institutions, it looks like we've had an impact because we have performed very well as a market. With an informal tally in our area, we estimate that we've probably applied for close to 800 PPP applications alone, and that's estimated to be between $65 and $75 million that are forgivable grants. Most banks have reported that their queue is clear and that they all have capacity. We've only heard from Wells Fargo that they're no longer taking applications, but we'll reach out and get another update from all the banks. And hopefully Mary's working on a specific number, so we'll have some accurate numbers. She does have numbers for the entire state, and we're trying to get that divvied up into counties. Most organizations right now are working to understand forgiveness aspect of this. And just yesterday, the U.S. Treasury indicated that they may agree to 2 new bipartisan proposals that are being presented that would extend the cap for expenses versus payroll from 25% to 50%. And the second proposal is to extend the period from 8 weeks to 16 weeks to exercise those expenditures. Now, these proposals have not been passed, but they could later this week or next, and we'll keep abreast of that and communicate that as well. As we make the transition to reopening, we're hearing about 2 big problems. The first being one of human capital, the challenge of hiring back people for various reasons, including the challenge of competing with state benefits in some cases. And the second is the cadence and process of reopening, which I think Leanne will speak about. The issue here is it's different for every single sector in terms of timing, guidance, and requirements. And it further complicates things because we have multiple governing agencies involved, including the state of Colorado and our regional health department, San Juan Basin Health. You've seen that in mid to late April, Governor Polis made multiple announcements around reopening and his intentions, with guidance then lagging until sometimes the day of. And then San Juan Basin Health has to interpret these set of guidances, since they've got ultimate jurisdiction in our area, and create requirements. And this is obviously not an ideal way for businesses to do planning, and it's confusing when and how to reopen, especially if dates change, which they're subject to do. So what we're trying to do is amplify anything and everything that comes out of San Juan Basin Health to create some clarity. There's 2 key sites that, and I've put up screenshots here on this slide, that right now pertain to Order 20 through 28, which on the state site, it's covid19.colorado.gov. We've advertised this in our in our membership communications as well as the San Juan Basin Health site. We expect that in about a week, we'll have another series of announcements from Governor Polis, and we'll go through that exact same cadence again. So hopefully this time around, the expectations will be set a little bit better. As of last Friday, April unemployment numbers came out and indicated that in April, unemployment numbers were 20.5 million. And that makes the total numbers of unemployment just north of 30 million, which puts us at close to 15% unemployment rate in the U.S. right now. So how we recover will depend on two main critical aspects. Number one is the impacts that public health is having. This is both macro and micro. In this case, this slide talks about the recovery for the general economy, but this is also true in our area. And then the second critical component is the impact of the economic interventions. So this slide is an X and Y axis. If you look at the Y axis, it's public health and how we're dealing with virus spread and public health response. And on the X axis is the impact of the economic interventions. So the best case scenario is A4, and is that up into the right quadrant. The worst case scenario is B3, and it shows the respective curves of recovery. What we don't want to do is be in any of the B categories, which would be which would indicate either broad failure of public health interventions, B3 through 5, or ineffective economic interventions, which would be B1 through 3. So we're keenly focused on this. With that, we're going to continue to focus on recovery, reopening as best as we can, and any initiatives associated with that. We'll participate heavily in the task force, as we have been, and we're, as Jameson indicated, we're here to assist in any way, shape, or form that we can with our membership. I will now hand it back over to Jameson, who will introduce Leanne.
Thank you, Mike. So these updates, they're going to be a little bit different. They're not necessarily going to be in the traditional format that we've done in the past. We've invited kind of a handful of panelists that are going to give some pretty specific updates to the recovery effort and as we come out of the COVID-19 restrictions. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Leanne with San Juan Basin Public Health. Thanks for joining us, Leanne.
Hi, this is Leanne. I'm hoping y'all can hear me. And then I can share screen if that would help, but we need Mike to stop sharing screen. Otherwise, I can just talk without a shared screen. Either way is fine. Okay, let me do a shared screen. So, share. Okay, I'm hoping you all can see this. Since I don't have video, I can't, no one's nodding at me, so I'm gonna assume unless someone tells me. So what I wanna show you is the 5 criteria from, great, awesome. So this is local public health's 5 criteria, and it is the way that we think from a public health perspective about monitoring if our social distancing has worked to bring us into a stabilization phase of this global pandemic. So I think just to get started, without social distancing measures, this virus was not something that we would have been able to control with normal communicable disease practices, which are disease investigation and control, and that follows a very typical public health practice for how we work to control communicable disease. This, for a lot of reasons, was not something that could be controlled initially through normal public health practice, which is disease investigation and control. So we meaning the larger public health community across 50 states, moved into different types of mitigation of transmission of infection that we all came to know as social distancing. And the idea behind social distancing is twofold. It is what many of us learned in the beginning of this to ensure that we do not breach the capacity of healthcare. But the other reason that we're doing social distancing is to develop the public health practice to control the infection. And so what the important detail to recognize is we went through this really, really difficult time to flatten the curve, which we flattened it so that we did not breach our healthcare locally. We did not breach it in the state of Colorado, but in the background, we're also putting in resources and practices so that after we get to a flatter curve and we have a disease that is in a stable transmission phase, we can stamp out or box in disease as it's spreading in a community. And that's the way that you can go back to work and go back to normal versions of economic activity while you're also not spreading disease at a rate that is going to be, cause extraordinarily high numbers of preventable and avoidable deaths in a community. So with that, the 5 criteria that we want to see from a public health perspective is a sustained decrease in cases for at least 14 days. And so I think we've talked a lot about this in this community and every community across the country, that you only know your case rate if you have available testing. The way that you know your case rate is by having testing available in your community. There have been many challenges to having the right amount of testing for COVID-19 rolled out across the country. So that has been a challenge. We do demonstrate in this community that we are not seeing increased growth of cases. I'm getting notices about recording, so sorry that I'm not assuming y'all can still hear me. The second criteria is our hospitals able to safely treat patients. So this is in reference to not breaching hospital capacity and not having to resort to crisis standards of care. So this is specifically around any community or region's hospital capacity. The third criteria is testing can be performed for all people with symptoms consistent with COVID-19. So this is the local public health document that was provided to the state about a month ago. And the other thing that I think we have to be careful with COVID-19 is recognizing that it is a new virus. We're studying it and learning new things all the time. And we do need to have testing for all individuals who are symptomatic to find disease and box it in. That said, we also will find that a best practice with COVID-19 is a percentage of testing for ongoing asymptomatic disease monitoring. So we can talk about how that becomes part of a reopening. And then the fourth criteria is the ability to continue active monitoring for all cases. And so this is enough testing to find cases, to do isolation orders as soon as we find a case, to do an intensive contact tracing and interview process, which is all close contacts for the prior 14 days, to issue quarantine orders to individuals that have been contacted within the last 14 days of the case, of the index case, and then also provide immediate testing for any individual. So when we all comes back to testing, we have to have the testing in the community so that anyone that turns up as a contact can be tested. And then we also eventually want testing, enough testing, so we can test someone at the end of their symptoms, so we can be sure that it is the right time for people to return to work. And then the last piece of it is the protocols in place that require social distancing and assist with case identification. And so as Mike described, the state of Colorado is coming out with a reopening plan, and a lot of that reopening plan includes very strict guidances for businesses and part of our job is to interpret that and share that information locally. So the reason that we can have orders in between the state order and the local activity is to ensure that our businesses are prepared and able to understand the guidance that's being provided and understand what the resources needed are and have the opportunity to work with staff and patrons or customers to keep everyone safe, because again, infection control is still the most important thing that we're doing as a community to ensure that we don't have subsequent spikes. So then this is a document that demonstrates in Colorado what a stabilization phase can look like and the types of businesses that can come back and the things that we expect to see as businesses coming back. I think people have seen these types of dashboards provided around the country. We do not have a statewide dashboard like this in the state of Colorado because there is the local control piece, but I did want to demonstrate here that this is what the local public health directors suggested to the state as what we would look at for criteria. And if you look across the top, the green, blue, black infographics that we used do not have dates for subsequent reopenings. Rather, it is based on incubation period of infection so that we can study and demonstrate that the measures that we're taking to reopen the economy are not causing significant spikes in disease. So we did it based on subsequent reopenings being after two incubation periods of COVID-19. So we would have the information that we need. And then this kind of goes through what it can look like for businesses and why they're attached to low risk, medium risk, and high risk businesses. And the risk is based on what your opportunity to spread infection in that type of business is. So it has to do with, are you able to mitigate the interaction between humans? And so if you are not, then what are the factors that you cannot mitigate? And there's a risk-based stratification for that. And then this last thing is the closure criteria. And this demonstrates that if you start to see a spike in a community, there's a way you want to unwind the openings so that we can get back to controlling infection so that we, again, don't breach our healthcare. And that, I think, is all the time I have. So I think I'll just leave it at that and see if there's any, I don't know if we do questions. I don't know what your style of presentation is.
No, thank you, Leanne. This is Jameson again. For everybody that's in the meeting, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You're welcome to ask questions there, and then we'll farm those questions out to the appropriate party when we've got time. Leanne, I really appreciate you getting on this morning. This is really valuable information. It sounds like as we start to move towards reopening and lifting restrictions, it's certainly going to be tiered. And so we appreciate it and appreciate the partnership that you've had with the Alliance and Mike and keeping us updated to be able to get updates out to the business community.
Jameson, we had two quick questions. Number one is, can we share this document on our website? So I'll work with Leanne to try to grab this doc. The second question from Jim was self-certification. Do essential services still need to self-certify?
The answer to that is yes, and the deadline for that is May 15th. And I think as Mike described early on in your presentation, that a lot of times guidance comes out and there's a bit of local need to interpret and figure out the best way to roll it out in a community. So we did not have a local self-certification process when essential businesses were the only businesses that were open in community. We added that layer in as we expanded, and this is because we want to expand slowly and carefully and do the best we can to prevent spread of infection. And then we realized, oh, but there are businesses that have already been operating. So we gave a May 15th deadline for those businesses. And if there's anyone that's running into trouble with it or has questions, I mean, the idea is, and I really appreciate, Mike, you showing the San Juan Basin Public Health website on your slide presentation, but we also should just make sure we have that link out, because the goal is just to get the guidance out and some of the why behind some of the measures, so that people understand, okay, this is why I'm being asked to do this, and this is why we really have to change habits right now, because we're all learning together how to prevent a global pandemic from growing, further growing. So that was a long way of saying yes, but it is not about enforcement, it is about education.
Perfect. Thank you, Leanne. Any other questions, Mike, that we want to address at this point?
Yeah, one quick question. Is there an omnibudsman that can help with businesses from San Juan Basin Health? And then the last question is, if you're in an office that doesn't interact with the public except for appointments, you still have to go through the process, we're assuming.
So if you're not interacting with the public, if you are a single sole individual or sole proprietor, your self-certification would simply say that you cannot spread infection because you're the only person there. If there's 2 or 3 or 4 of you, but you're not interacting with the public, you are still welcome to self-certify, stating that you are, all of your employees are sitting more than 6 feet apart, wearing face coverings, have access to hand washing, right? So we just want to document that we all, in any type of business, can keep our customers safe and keep ourselves safe. So that's the first thing. And then we do have a business liaison that has worked with the La Plata County Economic Recovery Group, and we have a consumer protection staff that we have repurposed for assisting in this process. So I don't know that we have one specific ombudsman, but I will make sure that all of that information is passed on to Mike, so that we can have each other's contact information to help folks move through these processes.
Super.
Okay, I am going to hop off for my 30, and I thank you all for the work that you are doing in our communities, and we look forward to all getting through this together.
Thank you, Leanne. At this point, we'll move into municipality updates. Councilor Barbara Noseworthy, are you on the line?
I am, thank you. A couple of quick updates for the community. First of all, a huge thanks to San Juan Basin Public Health. They are the lead agency handling this, our response, and we appreciate so very much their work. Every morning when I open up the Durango Herald, and the first thing I look at is the statistics, not just for our county, but for the whole region, all the way to Cortez down to Farmington. And those numbers are what kind of helps me get a sense of what's the potential risk here. And you know, this morning we're over 1,200 cases in this region. We may only have 66 in La Plata County, but within an hour-and-a-half drive range, we have over 1,200 cases. So I always ask people to keep that in mind so that we're aware of the potential impact on our public health system. And I think the one thing that the San Juan Basin Public Health has always advised us about this reopening is to do it right and to do it once. So that is our goal in this effort. Two quick updates on the budget. I'd like to share that with folks. We as a city are looking at a 27 to 30% reduction in our sales tax, and then we'll also have reduction in fees and other sources of revenue. So we have started to address how to implement an $8 to $10 million reduction in expenditures in our general fund. That has involved, we have laid off or furloughed all of our part-time and seasonal workers. That's almost 500 people. We'll be bringing them back as needed. We, starting on Friday, we implemented a 20% furlough for our remaining full-time staff. That means they are 1 day a week not working. Essential services that would be the police, the safety, water, sanitation, streets, and some of the city other employees. But for the most part, even our appointees, the interim city manager, the city attorney, and the municipal judge have taken this furlough. So that has resulted in a significant savings in reduction to our budget. We've also really pulled back many of the capital improvement projects, and they are deferred. We address particularly those that have to deal with water and sanitation to make certain that they do not risk the security of our water and water treatment capabilities, but they are projects that could be done in the next year or so. So we are monitoring that as well. And then this afternoon at our study session, we'll be looking at additional measures that can be taken to address the reduction in expenditures that we're going to need to be prepared to make. So that's the issue on the budget. On the search for the city manager, that was put on hold just for a while during the traveling, but we have received 50 applicants, and we will be getting a packet of the top 10 applicants that our consulting firm believes are the best fit for Durango. Each city council member will be looking at that and making his or her decision on the top 5. And once we get that kind of tallied, we'll come back. We're still sorting out how to conduct these interviews in a way that also involves the community. And we'll be discussing that this evening as well at our session. So, and then the last thing is, the recovery task force. I see Scott Shine is on the call here as well. We've got a wide group of people from the community participating, as is the city councilors, on the various sectors and how to safely and hopefully only once bring those various organizations and sectors of the community back online. I think that's the main thing. I'm happy to take any questions now or through the course of this morning meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, welcome Ashley Tarkington as the new mayor of Bayfield. Ashley, any updates from Bayfield?
Yes, thanks for having me. We are very cautiously optimistic about the state of Bayfield. As far as the town is concerned, we're very much business as usual. There have been no furloughs. Our planning commission is busy trying to push through some building permits in our new subdivision. We have 2 projects that just started, and they're local companies, and we have one that's in review now. Our water line replacement project, we awarded to a local company, TRC Construction, and that's slated to start here in the next couple of weeks. I have signed a couple of new business licenses during all of this, so that's kind of exciting. Unfortunately, our block party series and our 4th of July is canceled. That's going to be a big hit to our mostly our nonprofits, but those are big days for our, especially our restaurant sector here in town. We don't self-collect our sales tax, so we have a little bit of a delay, but our March figures are up almost $20,000 from last year. And, this is where I say I'm very cautiously optimistic about the state of Bayfield in my my data collection, my scientific data collection of cold calling businesses and going out to visit business owners. Everyone seems to be in a good place. Definitely our salons and restaurant sector is down, but everyone is hanging in there. They're learning to be creative. It's given them time to do some upgrades and some deep cleaning and rethink, some of their business angles. Right now, our grocery store, our dollar stores, our hardware stores, they are having, huge, huge months right now. So I'll be curious to see what those April figures come out to, and I'll give updates as we get those in. We were able to have a day, we secured some PPE from the National Guard, and we had a distribution day with the Marshal's office. our businesses are definitely needing additional PPE. So the $1,000 that the town awarded the chamber to put on the block parties, the chamber was able to purchase 500 masks, like 8 gallons of sanitizer, thermometers, and disinfecting wipes. So we're going to have another day to help distribute those to our businesses. One of my concerns was at the distribution day, you know, we said, are you guys doing okay with everything? Do you have any questions on your self-certification? And it was quite alarming how many people said the what? So we did a quick scramble, the town manager and I, calling businesses, going around to businesses, asking them, you know, to please look at this online, help get their self-certification tools in. So we just realized that there is a blatant disconnect on how we communicate with our businesses, and that's going to be addressed. We're going to kind of take that on between the chamber and the town. I've talked to a lot of businesses, and a lot of businesses are going to roll out kind of as they feel comfortable. There's not a lot of places really rushing, especially our salons. They're being very selective with their services. We have some restaurants that are very comfortable with their curbside pickup, and they're going to continue to do that for a little while to see how everything goes. We are working with businesses, especially on Mill Street, to expand their seating into the sidewalks or side patios just to help with social distancing. I mean, I feel like we're in a good place, and you know, I am thankful for all of these committees that I'm on. I'm able to learn a lot, and I'm able to relay a lot of this information to our businesses. And I mean, on a personal note, I am a bar owner by day, and I'll be honest, I'm getting very nervous. Our PPP money runs out on the 15th, and we're still in a different phase of rollout than everyone. So I'm trying to navigate that on the side of all this. So that is my report for Bayfield.
Thank you, Ashley. Sharon from Ignacio.
Good morning. Just want to say thank you to everyone who's here listening in. Thankfully, the town of Ignacio has not had to institute any furloughs and does not anticipate doing so. We increased our reserves and became debt-free in 2019, and that positioned us to kind of weather this storm a little bit. We realized we have about 60% of the 2020 general fund expenditures in reserves, and so we're going to do our best to utilize that rather than furlough or take any of those positions away. So currently, we're going to go ahead and move forward with some of the initiatives that we had, just seeing that what we had started is important and is a safety issue to our community. We're going to look on completing the Becker-Goddard intersection improvement, which is a full movement intersection, complete with handicap ramps and sidewalks. The design work's already underway. It was underway well before, so we're planning to put that project out to bid in July or early August, barring any other unforeseen circumstances. Also, we plan on completing an affordable housing study for our Rock Creek property, which will create 3 different development scenarios and set the stage for a public-private future housing venture. Another plan is our broadband plan, which we realized is even more important under the current situations. We're looking at utilizing our old steel gas piping as fiber conduit to see if we can get a public-private venture for fiber to all of our homes. And we decided as a board in 2019 that we wanted to do some strategic planning, but we waited until after our elections, and we went ahead and retained Sagebrush Limited to assist with that. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll be completing phase 1 of that project. And then we reached out to Region 9 and the Alliance because along with strategic planning, we wanted to make sure we reach out to our residents and citizens and businesses and find out what they want us to focus on. Also, we have a really great Ignacio COVID mutual aid that's been assisting our residents every Saturday with food distribution, baby supplies, that type of thing, as they get those supplies. So we really appreciate that. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Sharon. We'll move to Commissioner Clyde Church.
Good morning. From the county, I think the big story today is the new land use plan is on the planning website, the La Plata County website, and available for review. This is the culmination of 2 years of community input and work, planning, and a broad spectrum of community dialogue on things that will work and won't work. So we're very pleased to have that out there, draft out there. We'll be taking input, working on edits to this all summer or most of the summer. So there'll be plenty of time for everybody to comment and respond. And we'll be holding, I think it's in 2 weeks, holding a joint Planning Commission, Board of County Commissioners meeting to look at some of those inputs and what are some of the top issues. So that is ongoing. Please use the table of contents on this thing. It's 399 pages long. Everybody has something in here. Everybody gains. It's ag friendly, but it's also very development friendly. And so we're looking for the feedback from different segments of our economy to make any adjustments that are needed. We're flexible. We want to make this work somehow. And we really have to go with the input of the majority of the people. So this is a very important step in economic development for La Plata County. Just would like to say that the county is being conservative budget-wise. We're not making any major cuts. The EWP, which is the flood control program that is follow-up to the 416 fire, is nearing completion. This is Upper and Lower Trip Gulch, Lower Hermosa, Pine Acres, and Iron Gate, and the KOA up there. It's a great deal of construction going on and will be done shortly. Thank goodness. Lastly, I would like to say a couple more things. We're nearing catching up on our backlog of applications for our federal support programs at SNAP, TANF, veteran support. And so we're getting the money out, we're getting people supported, getting them connected with the right resources. And that's so important when the community is being impacted economically so badly. And lastly, I'd just like to comment on Barbara and Leanne's comments about the COVID virus and the steps the county and San Juan Basin Health has taken. San Juan Basin Health is a lead agency there. The county is supporting them with the Emergency Operations Center that meets now, I think weekly. It's been cut back to weekly. But a broad spectrum of all the government agencies in the region. And we are focusing on trying to do the right thing for La Plata County. Great people, wonderful heart, tremendous amount of time and effort that's gone into it. We're concerned here in La Plata County because we're just to the north of San Juan County in New Mexico. Down there's 1,034 cases, have been, with a 5% growth rate. Their curve has not flattened out. In fact, it's growing fast. In the Navajo Nation, there are 5,061 cases. They're still growing. It slowed down a little bit. They're down to 4.6% daily growth rate. And these are daily growth rates. So contagion is continuing. We're being very cautious. Please make sure your customers take all of the safety precautions that are recommended by San Juan Basin Health. Go through the certification, make sure you feel comfortable operating your business and opening up, and we can do it in one series of steps. So I encourage participation. I encourage compliance, voluntary compliance. And thank you very much, La Plata County. That's all.
Thank you, Clyde. We actually have Warren Unsicker. He's the Director of Economic Development for the City of Farmington. And then we also have Nate Duckett on the Mayor of Farmington. Let's go with Warren first. There's obviously been some concern brought up, I think, both from the city and the county related to kind of the number of cases just to the south of La Plata County. We'd love to hear from you guys as far as the messaging going out to Farmington and San Juan County, and how we can get through this as a region. Warren?
Sure. And can everyone hear me?
We can.
Perfect. So yes, we are working on this day by day and have been proactive in working to bolster our business community here. As was mentioned, we do have over 1,000 cases to date. Our hospital is still not exceeding its capacity, so it is still managing the cases well. So you talk about flattening the curve. They are still under the curve at this point in terms of being able to handle the cases coming through our hospital in terms of ventilators used and capacity. We are working diligently with our essential and non-essential businesses to make sure, A, they're taking advantage of all of the state and federal funding opportunities that are readily available. We formed a business response team that has been disseminating that information and working to ensure that people are accessing these programs efficiently and effectively. I am grateful for other local bankers down here that have been able to meet and exceed expectations in terms of helping our small businesses get these loans and programs in place. Really, we've been following the state orders at this point, and I'm sure you all saw as of recently there was a mandate that came out from the state that was allowing non-essential businesses to do curbside and pickup. That was implemented statewide except for the northwest corner of New Mexico. So we are still not able to offer curbside pickup for non-essential businesses. As of Monday, all essential businesses are now required to wear masks. All their employees are required to wear masks. And they're likewise required to not exceed 20% occupancy for retail and grocery. So we are implementing steps to slowly reopen, but also make sure and ensure the safety of those that are getting out and taking advantage of the resources that are available. We are looking to Friday to find out what the next steps are. That the stay-at-home order was extended from April 31st to the 15th of May, so we're going to be watching that closely. In the meantime, we are working with the Chamber of Commerce and other entities to discuss how we train our businesses as reopening starts to occur to ensure that they are practicing safe guidelines. The state health department has put out a guideline of sorts that shows what things need to be implemented. Many of the things that you mentioned earlier in terms of wearing safety coverings, as well as putting up plexiglass and having one-way aisles in stores. And so those things are being disseminated out to our businesses, and we're going to encourage them to take not a certification, that's a strong word, but a training to help make sure that they have seen and heeded all the guidelines that are out there. In the meantime, we are still seeing projects move forward. Our downtown Main Street revitalization project, Complete Streets, is still underway and is on time at this point. We are going to see the first phase of that completed here in June, and the second phase begin with hopes to be completed in November. So that is still underway. We have inquiries of businesses looking to start up still. And likewise, we are working on trying to attract rail to the region still. So I know we've had some folks from your organization as well as others in the La Plata County region and beyond to be on those calls to discuss how we bring an essential distribution and logistics service to our region here. We have been trying to be creative too with our businesses in our downtown. We have events like art walks, which obviously we're not doing physically, but we hosted a virtual art walk, which has seen great success. In fact, I think it's still active if you visit our Farmington CVB's website. We've seen national interest in that and people from the East and West Coast buying up art from the Four Corners region, which is very exciting to see. So with that, we are still, again, cautiously optimistic that we will be reopening soon, but with these measures in place to try and make sure that our businesses are prepared to do it effectively.
Super, I appreciate it, Warren. Nate, are you on the phone as well?
Yes, sir.
Would love to hear an update from you as well, if you're able.
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to thank you for the invitation to join me this morning. It's great to talk to our regional partners on the southern part of Colorado. We certainly recognize Farmington is much more tied into this regional economy than we are the Rio Grande corridor here in New Mexico. So I appreciate you all giving us an opportunity to join you. Just be sure we clarify some things here. We're doing everything we can within the realm of things we can control to support our community. We've been hit very hard in 3 skilled nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities here in the city. So in the zip code 87401, you're going to see 300, and I think there's 300 cases. More than half of those have been just in 2 skilled nursing facilities here in town. So that's taken quite a toll on that senior population in those facilities. But I can even tell you that over 80% of individuals who have been reported as succumbing to the disease were also located in those 2 facilities. So, very serious situation. We're continuing the stay-at-home order. We would like to see a more just playing field for all of our local businesses, specialized retailers, especially those who sell similar items to the big box stores that have been allowed to stay open. We believe that our small business owners have a passion for what they do. It's their livelihood, and they will take the precautions necessary, as we're seeing, and then the businesses that are open now, which is really interesting to see kind of the progression, the transition in some of these big box retailers, the things they're doing now versus what they were doing 2 weeks ago. It continues to change. I have been in conversation with the Navajo Nation president and in another conversation with the Navajo Nation delegates. And we have been working to provide food and supplies to the chapter houses. Last week, we had 6 churches collect cleaning supplies that our San Juan County Office of Emergency Management delivered to Shiprock and Upper Fruitland. Had about 2 tons of supplies that were delivered. It must be working. The different chapter houses that were visited, I was told, were filled with food and supplies. And so I appreciate the regional community coming together to support our friends on the Navajo Nation. I'm up for any questions. I'm sure there may be questions that you all have that we would love to answer for you. I will tell you that there are some bright spots that come out of our situation. I've never seen more people outside on our trails, on the river, at the lake, people getting outside and recreating. It's been really good to see. Any questions for me?
Super. Yeah, I appreciate it, Nate. It looks like right now there's no questions coming in. I appreciate kind of a little bit of the color related to the number of cases and specific zip codes and some of those assisted living and nursing homes. Obviously, the economic vitality is regionally. We have a lot of workers that come from San Juan County and Farmington. So appreciate you guys' partnership working with the Alliance and the city of Durango and county to give us updates so that we can make decisions more as a region to make sure that we don't have a resurgence. So we appreciate you guys to the south. And if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, I do want to make sure I comment on my conversations with the governor's office for the past 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't know how long we've been doing this now. has been that we need to closely mirror things that are happening in Colorado due to the fact that we're kind of a border community, so to speak. And I recognize that we have people in San Juan County that are going up there to play golf and are going to start taking advantage of some of the things that may be open there that are not open here. There's certainly a lot of people here who need haircuts. So we'll see how that goes. But I just appreciate your willingness to be open and have these conversations. And if I can answer any questions for anybody, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is on the city's website. Just let me know how I can help.
Hey, Mayor, this is Miriam over here at the Southwest COG. We do have a question from one of the attendees. I'm going to unmute her so she can ask that.
Thank you, Miriam.
Go ahead, Allison.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, Allison, you need to unmute yourself, I believe.
If she can type the question, we'd be happy to get with Nate and get her an answer and get it back as well, Miriam.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nate. We may follow up with some additional questions.
Thank you.
There is a question that's come in through the chat for the mayor.
Oh, I see it here from Tim Walsworth.
Yeah.
How can Durango, La Plata County help San Juan County, New Mexico, and know the requirements requests to enter many of our businesses? I think if just in specifics to helping San Juan County, much of it is occurring in the very rural areas, unfortunately, and is having a huge impact in those multi-generational households. What we have tried to work with the governor's office on since really mid to late March is that there needs to be an incentive to kind of keep people at home. I mean, the stay-at-home order, that's what it meant. And so providing supplies, I think, food drives, cleaning supply drives, toiletries drives, things like that within your communities that you can assist them with would be huge. I mean, we have obviously had conversations with delegates all the way out into northeastern Arizona in chapter houses there, and they are in need of support also. So I think organizing those types of community efforts are huge. I was happy to find out and to see that the chapter houses had an ample supply of food, but I know that they're doing daily deliveries and into very far-reaching parts of the Navajo Nation. So I would recommend something like that. And certainly you could send down, I'm sure all of you know Jamie Church, our fantastic leader at the Farmington Chamber of Commerce. If you want to send information over to her that we can get out to people, just to let them know the requirements to enter the businesses in Southern Colorado, that would be great. I would imagine they're mirroring many of the things that are they're going to be happening here as well. So I appreciate that information.
Thank you again, Nate. Good question, Tim. Okay, I think we have Tom Sturdicus on. I know he's got to jump off pretty quick, but any quick updates related to Fort Lewis, Tom?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Mayor. That was great to hear that update and appreciate your support of the Navajo Nation. We obviously have many students there, so it's an important community for us. Let me just say a few things quickly. First of all, kudos to the faculty and staff of Fort Lewis College who have kept our students safe and learning during this time. In 5 days' time, we moved 700 courses online overnight, an incredible feat. Kept students fed in our residence hall. There's still about 120 students in residence halls who had nowhere else to go, so we felt a real moral and ethical obligation to keep those students safe. And the staff and faculty have just leaned in and done an incredible job. That's the good news. The unsettled news is that the state faces anywhere between a $2 to $4 billion revenue shortfall from the original budget put forward by the governor. We'll know the extent of that shortly. The sort of other thing that I want folks to know is that we are not shying away from our goals and our strategic plan. We're very doggedly determined to achieve those. So you probably will not see from Fort Lewis a generic across the board furlough or sort of generic reduction in force. If we do face the possibility of a budget reduction, those will be strategic and vertical cuts, not horizontal cuts. Lastly, I would say our Stay Local campaign I want to highlight. If you just Google Fort Lewis College Stay Local, we're making it very easy for current students to transfer to Fort Lewis who may be attending another institution, guaranteeing a one-day turnaround on their application and most of their college courses from other institutions transferring into our majors. I will note right now that we are only about 6% off of our enrollment targets, which is incredible, just an incredible testament to our hardworking staff and faculty. Most institutions are projecting 15% decreases in enrollment. And the fact that we're looking somewhat stable is incredible. And we are working hard to plan for a safe opening in the fall with all of the various complications and adjustments that will have to happen there. And I'm done. I can take President at Fort Lewis if you need to talk to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. We'll move to Mary Shepard with the SBDC.
Jameson.
I think Mary had to drop. Are you there, Mary?
Mary needed to run.
Yep.
Okay. We'll move to Laura with Region 9.
Good morning, everyone. I thought I would be on video, so I just want to let you know that I did do my hair today. I do need a haircut like all of you. Just a quick update. Region 9 has completed an economic snapshot report for 2020, and that is available on our website, scan.org, under regional data. If any of you are interested, it does a breakdown by county. Related to this, and in partnership with the La Plata Recovery Task Force, we are working on developing a data dashboard that will align the response, the recovery, the reopening, and looking at such data such as unemployment numbers as they change over time in our communities and counties, the different job sectors, so we can see how some of our sectors are recovering or not. And basically, we hope to launch this in all of our communities, and we're working on some potential funding to do that. We've been working really closely, obviously, Heather in our office and Roger Z, as well as Donna Graves, who works closely with us on data. So we're hoping that'll be helpful and something that we can do. And related to the La Plata Recovery Task Force, we're working in all 4 counties to do this as well. So we've been on a lot of recovery meetings, and we really appreciate, all the work that all the communities are doing. We've been really busy in terms of business assistance. We have provided over $226,000 in emergency loans, which is between $1,000 to $10,000. We've helped 36 businesses. We've protected 128 jobs. 19 businesses are La Plata County businesses, and that does not include another 10 businesses in San Juan County that was able to do some funding through their microloan program, which we staff. We do believe that we're going to have additional funding through 2 state partnerships. So please, if you are a business and you're struggling, please contact us and we will keep you abreast of that. We do believe PPP has been a huge help. We primarily have served businesses that were not eligible, sole proprietorships, self-employed, those types of businesses. And then the last thing I want to mention is we have a business support project. We were actually approved as an enterprise zone project through the state. So if you make a donation to the business support project, you will receive a 25% Colorado State credit on that donation. You can find more information on our website, or on southwestcoda.org. We really appreciate the Community Foundation. They've worked with us on this. So far, we've raised over $5,000, and that's been supplementing our business support. It goes only to businesses rather than individuals. Are there any questions? That's pretty much my update for today. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Laura. And thanks to Roger Zalnaradis. I know he stepped in from the tribe to kind of help both Region 9 and the Alliance just with some statistics and stuff. So appreciate him. That partnership is alive and strong as well. Rachel Brown with Visit Durango. Obviously, Rachel, we're already over time. So if we can keep updates as brief as possible, sure would appreciate it.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. And I will try and keep this brief. It might be a little tricky because Visit Durango, we just completed our marketing recovery strategy, and I did want to give you all a little sneak peek of that. But we will be hosting a webinar on this Friday to release the full strategy. So I will be giving you guys some details for that at the end. You can go to the next slide. So we currently have 5 full-time staff members. I started in November, and we have the rest of our team marketing and sales experts. For the industry outlook, so, you know, as we know, things are grim, but they will be getting better from here. There is a decline of 45% for the year overall for the tourism industry. The lowest point of the recession is predicted to be the second quarter of 2020, which is, of course, right now. And from the travel and tourism industry alone, there will be a loss of 8 million jobs. So Visit Durango, there is a lot of data out there, but we wanted to know specifically about what people who have trips planned to Durango were thinking and how their trips may have changed. So we put out a survey with 1,500 respondents. We found that 65% feel safe traveling within 2 months or less of the stay-at-home order being lifted, which is positive. There's no surprise that people will be avoiding movie theaters and airports. 83% plan on traveling by car. And based on the calls that we have received to the Welcome Center and live chats through our website, 71% of people say they do plan on rebooking their trips for this year. So that is a great statistic as well. The methods that we use to attract visitors. So of course we have the Welcome Center downtown on Main, sales, engaging content, PR, marketing campaigns, measurable goals, a data approach, and conversion-based tracking. The next slide is of an anticipated timeline, keyword anticipated. As we know, things started in February. In March, the executive order began and Visit Durango began our in-crisis response. In April was the triage marketing mode. We launched a very successful social media campaign. And of course, right now we are in the safer at home and we're slowly starting to work into recovery phase 1 of our strategy. And I'll come back to this a bit at the end. So this is just a taste test of the strategy. So I'll be showing you the tactics for triage and pre-recovery. But if you tune into the webinar, you'll get to see all the 4 phases of recovery. So these tactics are on our website. We've been promoting virtual experiences, as a few people have already mentioned on the call. That's been very popular. We always do B2C communications. But obviously B2B is very important right now, as that's our main means of crisis communications. We have been promoting the #SaveTourism campaign on behalf of our industry. The only paid media we have running right now is the stuff that runs year round, which is on colorado.com and the visitor's guide. PR, we have no journalists in town, of course, but we are keeping in touch. Same with group sales. And then on social media, I hope you've seen our very popular Durango Dreaming campaign. That has been a huge success. And then, of course, our Welcome Center has gone virtual since closing. This is just a few screenshots of some campaigns that have gotten picked up in the press. And then for the campaign preview, these are just a few graphics to give you a taste test. My favorite is the Find Your Escape, obviously appealing to those who have a bit of cabin fever and pent-up demand to fulfill their desire to escape to somewhere that is remote and not crowded like Durango. So back to the anticipated timeline. In June, we will continue phase 1, July and August. We're hoping to be recovery phase 2, again, anticipated, and then hoping to be in recovery phase 3 by September. And on that, I will end our little taste test, but I hope you all can join us for our strategy release webinar. That's this Friday from 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. And you can email me, rachel@durango.org, if you would like the information about the webinar, the link to that, or if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We'll move to Scott Shine with the La Plata Economic Recovery Task Force. Scott.
Thanks, Jameson. Good morning, everybody. I'll be quick here as we all are probably starting to move into other stuff for the day, but appreciate all the Alliance is doing to bring people together and keep us informed. A lot of the work that has been discussed already falls under sort of this broad regional collaborative task force that took shape about 8 weeks ago. And it's been a privilege to be a part of it. It's really been an effective group that's worked hard and quickly, especially during that immediate response phase. When the federal stimulus information was coming out, when we had business owners looking for ways to maximize the time while they were closed, this group worked really hard to get information out and coordinate amongst over 24 different regional organizations that are represented on the task force. Some credit goes to Tim Walsworth for stepping up and organizing the group at the outset, and we've been housed under the SWCOTA.org, Southwest Colorado Disaster Assistance framework, which was set up for the 416 fire, and we've sort of used that to build on that previous success in communications and collaborating amongst, like I said, different regional partners. So if you want to get more information about the task force, you can go to the website. A lot of you are either involved or have heard about it before, but here's some just general information about the work that's been going on. And I think for the business owners on the call, it's just really important that you know that there is this regional collaborative group has been meeting 3 times a week. That's bumped down now, but is working really hard to figure out how to best respond to the current situation. And I think it's really helpful to just summarize the group's purposes in 3 different categories. The first is getting business owners current and easily digestible info. Leanne talked about that and sort of translating state directives into simple, easy to use information for business owners. So that was the playbook that the Alliance really led the effort on to create and allow people to work through the PPP application process. So we're continuing to do that with federal, state, local health orders, things like that. Another big component of this task force is spurring innovation and success in the local business community by sharing best practices and tips on how to operate in the new normal. We see that as being a big long-term effort, and so we're really setting up for this group to continue to work and be effective over many months. This won't disband once everything's reopened, but we see the current crisis as a time to sort of look at restructuring and reimagining how we do things as a community. And all of the people involved in the task force are leaders in the region that can affect change. And so we're trying to really capitalize on this time to make changes that maybe needed to be made even before the crisis, and look at how we do things better as a community. So that's been an exciting component of the task force work. And then the other big piece is nurturing a community mindset and local action and recovery efforts. And that's really getting the word out about how the community can participate and contribute to recovery efforts, trying to tap into that idea that we're all in this together, that recovery will be very locally led and locally driven, and we need to educate the community on how they can best contribute to those recovery efforts. So we're doing a lot of messaging around being involved in that for all the community members. There's a couple of big things that are happening right now as far as transitioning to smaller sector teams that are meeting to focus on specific aspects of the local economy. One of those groups is really focused on how do we facilitate more outdoor seating and gathering areas downtown. That'll be a key thing for this summer. And so we're working on different options for that. As many of you know, I'm the planning manager for the city of Durango, and we've seen a real steady flow of development projects still coming in. Construction was one of the sectors that was always allowed to operate as an essential business, and we've worked really hard to continue meeting their needs and making sure they can operate safely. And so there's a group looking at sort of the construction, development, real estate sectors to say, what can we do coming out of the response phase, and as we move into stabilization and recovery? Are there policy changes? Are there other things that can be done to spur investment and make sure investment that's already happened continues in those sectors? We see that as a really important piece of recovery. And one thing related to that the city did last week is we approved the city's first urban renewal authority that will facilitate public and private partnerships on future development and redevelopment in Durango. So a lot of these things, like I said, have been mentioned with what Region 9 is doing with data, what Rachel and Visit Durango is doing with their recovery plan. And overall, the task force is just a hub of all of these regional efforts and trying to share that with the business community, and then also take input and ideas from the business community. So we have representatives from all these sectors. We're going to have an online form where business owners can contribute ideas and suggestions for how we as a community come out of this current situation, recover, and then be positioned better to respond in the future and just be a stronger community. So I'd encourage you to go to swcota.org. A lot of information up there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Super. Thank you, Scott. Any questions out there for Scott? Does not look like it. We'll move to Mike with CDOT. Not sure if Mike is on still or not. Okay,
Good morning.
we'll skip Mike. There we go. Morning, Mike.
Could I present some slides real quick? And I'll try to make this very fast.
Mike, you can share your desktop.
doing it right now. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's a couple things with CDOT going on right now, and there's a lot of stuff up in the air. It's very fluid at this moment. We're still waiting for the legislature to get back into session. We're communicating 2-3 times a week with the state treasurer. And a lot of the Treasury discussion right now is around Senate Bill 267. Senate Bill 267 is a 4-year funding plan that would generate about anywhere from about $400 to $700 million a year of new money for CDOT for new construction. A good example of this is the connection project in Durango. Between Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 267, we've got about $63 million of this new funding in that one project. But we're looking at a couple things. We have our base program, which is about $600 million a year. We get about 8% of that. That program we're hoping is going to stay sound, but we won't know until we start seeing gas tax implications and revenue declines from that. That's a little too far off for us to really figure out what we're doing. But Senate Bill 267 is definitely a target right now that's being looked at for reductions. So these slides that I'm showing to you are some of the slides that we gave to the Transportation Commission over the last few weeks. And as you can see on these dates, April 16th to 21st, May 7th, every 2 weeks we've been presenting to the commission. Typically, we only talk to them once a month, but really trying to keep them aware of what's happening with 267, planning for the worst, trying to set a plan forwards before the legislature comes so we're better prepared for whatever outcomes happen. The commission has agreed, that we're going to stay with our statewide plan or your transportation plan. They agreed that we should plan for the worst with the thoughts that if we plan for the worst now, then if we actually get more money, we have a plan going forwards on how we can put that money out to the roads very quickly. We talk about a second tranche of COP, certificates of participation, which is supposed to be this year about $726 million, but we're thinking it's going to be cut by about $250 million. This is the Senate Bill 267 money that we're working through, but we did work on some key elements that are agreed to here. Honor all awarded projects, so the connection project in Durango is being honored. It's going to be funded, including rural pavement. We have 2 rural surfacing pavement projects going on right now for almost $34 million. So there's a lot of money coming out of us, particularly in the rural areas where we have these projects. And then also proceeding with what we call limbo projects. These were projects that were advertised, bids were opened, contractors are waiting for us to say, go to work. And we actually put a hold on these projects. And some of these projects have been on hold for over a month now. One of them is over in the San Luis Valley. It's about $24 million. And we've been waiting to make sure that second tranche or year 2 Senate Bill 267 money, those bonds get issued. We were anticipating issuance back in January, then it was delayed to March, then it was delayed to April, and we're hoping maybe next week the treasurer has enough confidence that they can issue those bonds. So these projects are limbo projects right now, waiting for that tranche of money to be issued so that we can award those and move forward. So these are some of the juggling pieces that we're dealing with, not just inside of CDOT, but across the entire financial program within the state of Colorado. So one of the things we had to do, second year Senate Bill 267, we lowered our estimate from about $726 million to $250 million. So we're thinking we have about, or to $550 million, excuse me. We think we have about $550 million in highway funding, new money above our base program to do additional work. When you start looking at the scenario over on the right-hand side here with the column layout on the right, it shows all of the Senate bills and House bills that we've received over the years. FY20, FY21 is lumped into this a little bit, but you see it actually added up to $726 million. Now, we are anticipating that the legislature and the governor, they've been giving us general fund money, about $50 million a year. We're going to lose this year's and the next 2 years general fund money of 150 million. That money is actually to help pay off bonds. So we're not going to get that, and we're going to have to cover those bond payments likely on our own. And then there's additional debt service on those bonds of about 48 million for other work that's already been done. So we have to take that 726 million and we reduce it by 198 million. That puts us at 528. So we're in that range of 530 to 550 million. We're going to assume 550 million is our working number that we have right now. So then we started looking at the projects that we've got out, and you can see the ones underlined in red are the Region 5 projects. First one at the top is a connection. We got on there early on with Senate Bill 1 money of 54 million, plus the other almost 8 million of Senate Bill 267. That project is protected. They want to make sure they can fund it. All of these projects on this list are going to be funded, but the ones in blue, 3/4 of the way down, are the limbo projects that are still waiting award. So Colorado 17, State Highway 17 in the San Luis Valley, there's $17 million waiting on issuance of that COP. Hopefully we get that, and by the end of this month, we'll be able to award that project. The 141, 145 project's already been awarded, but there's 10 million of Senate Bill 267 waiting to come into that. Bottom line, down here at the total, we had 550 million as a planning number, and this one list of projects is 425 of that 550 million. So we started with 550, we go through all these elements. Bottom line right now, that leaves us with roughly $124 million remaining statewide for projects to be advertised this year. That is a tough number. When you look at all the big projects on the Front Range, you're looking at all 5 regions and how we're going to work through this. One of the other things we look at is looking at equity and looking at regional distribution. Like I said, Region 5 gets about 8% of the funding. Under Senate Bill 267, under Senate Bill 1, at this point, we are currently at 9.2%. We're slightly above our percentages. There's other regions that aren't even at their percentages yet. And going through different scenarios, and I'm not going to talk about the I-25 stuff to move this along, bottom line is we're over our percentage allocation. We've actually got more money than we probably should have. And so they are looking at any of that remaining money, that $120 million or $140 million that I showed on the previous slide, is going to go to regions 1, 2, or 3. Region 4 and Region 5 are not going to get any of that money. And so the projects we've got out now are the projects we're going to get, and that's pretty much it from new money. And we still have some other small projects coming forward out of our base program, which is a gas tax, that we'll continue to move forwards with this year. But because we got in early, we got our connection project, we got these other resurfacing projects going, we've pretty much spent the allocation that we were supposed to get. We actually had about 4 other projects that we would have done if we didn't have the COVID crisis and have the downturn in the economy. But because that is not a possibility at this point, those projects, the designs are being finished, the projects are going to be shelved, and if we actually can get back to where, yes, they can start giving us new money, that's where we go back to those shelf projects and start putting them out to advertisement for everyone. So just kind of wanted to give you a quick update on that. You know, it's really tough. They still want to achieve 25% rural paving. We're pretty close to that, I would say, with those 2 projects that we put out on 141, and assuming we get the award for State Highway 17. But I think we're managing well. I think we're planning for the worst, hopefully worse than what the legislature hands to us in the end. And with that plan, we've prioritized projects and we're structuring it the way we need to be able to put those projects out as quickly as possible if our forecasts actually come back better than what we anticipate. So that's pretty quick and fast. Sorry I went so quick, but I know we're running short on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Last but not least, we'll move to Dan on the real estate side.
Good morning, everybody. Do you have my slides prepared as well? Thanks for sticking around. This is one of the longer meetings we've had, but it's such good content. I think it's worth it. So I will also be very quick to get everybody out of here, but just wanted to tell you that the Durango Area Association of Realtors, along with the Colorado Association of Realtors and everybody in the country, have new showing guidelines as of, let's see, April, the beginning of April, we were told no showing. So real estate brokers could not show properties there for a few weeks. We have gone into the Safer at Home, which does allow showings, but with a lot of guidelines. So we have to advise sellers to turn on all the lights, open doors, things like that to reduce the amount of touching. Brokers need to ensure that the property is disinfected between each showing. And then we have to minimize the number of people that are there. So a maximum of 3 people at a showing. Then we always have to wear masks and gloves. Buyers as well need to be wearing masks and gloves to view the property. We have to discourage buyers from touching anything in the property, sitting on furniture, using the bathroom. And then we're also maintaining 6 feet of distance. The statistics are quite interesting. So I've taken it upon myself to track the weekly numbers, because when we look at quarterly numbers and month by month, it doesn't quite tell the story of what we're dealing with here during the COVID situation. So here you look at the La Plata County single family home new listings per week. And so that first data set, the number 1 on the x-axis is February 1st through 7th. And as you look at week 8, the stay-at-home order came into play, and before that, we were well above the 2019 numbers, and then we crossed the line. And so the stay-at-home order was kind of the first time that we went below 2019 numbers. Then we saw a bigger gap once the no showing order came into place from the Attorney General as a clarification. And we've tracked the new listing numbers as far as the graph trend goes quite similarly to 2019, but with about a 35% decrease in new listings hitting the market. If you look at the solds, which is the next slide, we were, you can tell per week, it's kind of an interesting thing to follow as they track, but the home sales, we were at 150 to, or 80% to 150%, so 2 to 3x the number of sales than we had in 2018 up until the beginning of March. And then right there in the middle of March, you saw a decrease. And so let's see, I'm taking a look. So in mid-March, or excuse me, the week of May 2nd through 8th, which was last week, we were down 36% for single family home sales in the county from 2019. And I have a feeling that we're going to continue to see that sort of distance from the last year's numbers. Transactions are still occurring, but I think everybody's playing it safe. It's still anybody's guess as to what will happen. The last graph that I will show is the under contract numbers. So, everybody talks about the V-shaped recovery that everybody was kind of hoping for. The other graphs don't quite show that, but if you're looking just at properties going under contract, the single family homes in La Plata County going under contract, we did have a little bit of a recovery in that activity. It flatlined pretty much during the no showings and then popped back up last week. So again, we're all watching it. We're being very diligent as an association. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to field them. But ultimately, it's anyone's guess as to what could happen. So many people are feeling so many different effects, and we're just trying to understand it as best as possible.
Thank you, Dan. We appreciate everybody staying on today. I'll make a couple comments and then hand it over to Mike for any closing comments he's got. Obviously, we as an organization, we continue to kind of monitor everything we possibly can to assist the business community, to work towards reopening and lifting restrictions, but absolutely in a safe manner. I think the widely known opinion is that if there's a resurgence in the fall and a second closure, just how incredibly difficult that would be for the community and detrimental to a lot of businesses. So we continue to work with San Juan Basin Health and a lot of the other partners in the county and in the region to make advised decisions. And and get that information back out to the membership and the community. If any of our membership has any questions, concerns, again, is running up against a brick wall, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. The organization right now, we're financially healthy. We're kind of prepared to weather through this, and we rely on the membership to be able to do that. So those are my final comments. I'll hand it over to Mike French, our executive director, to make any comments he's got.
Yeah, thank you, Jameson. I'll echo those comments. I think that we're weathering the storm. We're going through some of the same motions that all of our membership is going through, and being very diligent about things like cash flow and burn rate, and trying to predict what the next 3 months are going to look like. The meeting did go long. We'll do our best to keep it back within an hour. As you can tell, there's just a lot of pent-up information that we wanted to get out there. What we'll also do is collect information and publish a newsletter, just like we did in lieu of last month's meeting, and that way we can sort of have a little bit of both. Have a live event like this, a live virtual event that we streamline, and then keep updates on a digital document. Can't say enough about the task force. Scott, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your leadership. That group has been phenomenal to work with, and it's been really helpful, all from not just from a logistics standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint, to have more people to work with and that are going through the exact same thing, and it's been very uplifting. I'm also getting a lot of inspiration from just the stories and everything that we're seeing out there. We'll keep working hard, and appreciate everybody's time this morning.
Thank you, everyone. As webinars and everything come up, Mike and Emily will get that information out, and we will talk to everyone next month. Thank you so much.